Okay guys, welcome to Module 1. In this module, our expert will be teaching you about common elements that can be tested. So get ready to take some notes and let's jump right in.
All right, so we're going to use this landing page as an example and look at the various elements that can be split tested when you're trying to optimize your conversion rates. Now, one important thing that I want to emphasize, and we'll come back to it and I'll remind you later, is that you can only test one thing per variable that you're testing. So if you're testing two variations, only one element should be changed between the two. Otherwise, you're not going to know what caused the increased conversion. Okay, if you start changing multiple variations, if you change a headline and a button and an image in both of the variations, well, then you won't know whether it was the headline or the image or the copy or the background or the button that made the difference. So it's incredibly important that when you are split testing among two variations, you're only doing one element at a time so that you can absolutely nail down what has what kind of effect on your conversion rates. So let's just take it from the top, okay? The headline. The headline is the first thing that you could potentially test in a split test to see if you get a better conversion rate. Okay, and basically, if you've got a unique selling proposition or multiple angles that could be attractive about your product, you would want to figure out how to incorporate them and which ones to emphasize, because there's only so many words you can fit into a headline, right? I mean, that's the whole point of a headline, is that it's pretty short and sweet. You want to get people's attention, right? And you can only include so much information in there. So just as a random example, let's take things to a higher level. Sounds kind of cool, but it's also very vague, right? What if the headline was a little bit beefier and said, let me show you how to boost your revenue by 30%? That is more specific, and it might perform better. We don't know. We would have to test it. My guess is it probably would, but that's the point of a split test. So what we want to do is create one page with this headline, which we already have, and another page with that other headline, and leave all other elements the same. They have to remain constant between those two page variations. Now, the next thing you can change is imagery. Imagery is super powerful on landing pages, and it can make the difference between high and low conversion rates. So a lot of things to take into account are your target audience. You want to make sure that any human characters in your images will be relatable or have the desired effect on your audience. So if your audience is in a certain demographic group, just to give you an example, if you start noticing, and this is a real life example here, if you were to start noticing based on your email interaction with people in your customer community that many of them are elderly, many of them are retirees or coming up on retirement, well, guess what? You should probably have some gray hair in your images so that it's relatable, right? Gender is huge. There's competing studies out there as to whether or not a female is more likely to buy something if she sees a male or a fellow female. And it obviously depends on what type of product you're selling. Same thing with a man. Is he more likely to buy something if he sees a female or a male? It depends. If you're selling, masculine products, something like a big manly, deodorant brand, well, then you probably want to see men on screen using it, obviously. But can you incorporate gender into it? For example, ladies who are impressed by the smell of the deodorant, right? There's a science behind all of this. But what you can do is sort of skip the science and just split test what the difference is. So we could literally have an image like this, and then have the exact same image, or very similar, same pose or similar pose at least, but have a female here. Split test that and see what the difference is. And if you see a significant difference, one way or the other, then go with it. Go with the winner. Okay? Another thing to consider about imagery is tangible perceived value. Depending on your target audience, it may get you further to have a set of a bunch of what are clearly, pretend digital mock-ups of digital products. Okay? Because in some people, that sort of activates this feeling of, wow, that's a thing, and I want to get my hands on it. I want to possess that, right? But you could also test this with purely an abstract image of a person. with a headline next to them, or a person smiling, or an entrepreneur standing in their place of business or something like that. No digital products being represented at all. And see if that works better. Once again, make sure that's the only element that you're testing, and then see what the winner is. Next, there's the copy, which is the actual text, the words of your message. This is very important. However, it's not quite as easy to just, play switcheroo with it, because there's a lot of it. There's multiple words, multiple sentences, right? And so probably if you're going to split test different copy, they're going to be completely different. Okay, you're going to change which angle is emphasized. Depending on what you're selling or offering for free, there's probably multiple marketing angles that you could push that might be relevant to different target markets. And so you could have angle 1 and angle 2 and see which one works best. So for example, in this copy, you'll see there's sort of an assumption that a business exists. This mastermind course will take your business to the next level. Here's what it includes. But what if we split tested that against exact same page, but the copy was different and the angle was a little bit different, and in this next variation, what was actually being emphasized was a person who does not have an existing successful business, a person who's been struggling. So finally, once and for all, stop struggling and we'll get your business off the ground, or something like that, and test those two different marketing angles of copy against each other and see which one resonates the most with your traffic. And then finally, there's the button. Now, this is sort of a controversial area, because there's people who swear that changing the color of a button can have a huge impact on conversion rates, and then there's people who think that that's just silly. So the correct answer is probably somewhere in the middle. There is evidence that different colors result in different behavior or different psychological effects on viewers. Red usually translates to urgency, but at the same time, red can also mean no. Blue usually translates to trust. At the same time, blue could theoretically not get your people excited enough or galvanized enough. And then there's branding. If brand colors and theme colors, that are part of your identity, are important to you, and maintaining an attractive page are important to you, then you might not have as many options to drastically change to just one specific color on your buy button. But if you do have the flexibility to run a quick test between blue and red, something simple like that, just to see on the off chance that it makes a difference, well, it might be worth doing so. And if the gap between the two of them is significant enough, then bravo, you've got a winner. You can go with whatever color that was, at least for that particular landing page. And finally, it's not just the color of the button, it's also the copy of the button. Okay, so the different wording. Take it to a higher level is kind of a cool sounding phrase, a little bit more vague, right? Get the course could be something that you test against that. One area on which there's been a lot of study is the point of view of the text. So if it's written from the point of view of the reader, and the reader sees the button as saying, give me the free report, versus download your free report, there's been some studies and tests in the past that have shown that the give me the free report, meaning speaking from the perspective of the reader, has a higher conversion rate. It's probably not always going to be the case, but because that phenomenon does exist out there, it might be something smart to test on your pages. So those are some examples of things that you could split test. Remember, always keep in mind, between two variations, only have one element different. Otherwise, there's no point in testing. All right. And then the common elements that we talked about were headline, imagery, copy, and buttons.
Hey folks, welcome to Module 2. In this module, our expert will be showing you how to create test variations. So get ready to take some notes, and let's jump right in.
All right, so this is going to be a pretty quick walkthrough of the actual technical aspect of creating a split test. Now, depending on what type of sales page or lead page software you're working with, the process and the user interface might be a little bit different, but the general principles are the same, and most high-end softwares do have this A/B split testing functionality. So you might just have to dig a little bit or get in touch with the support team for your software, and you'll be able to do the same thing regardless of what you're using. In our case, we're using Instapage, which is a very, very good landing page software. And here's the page we were looking at earlier in the previous lesson. So after some time reflecting on the best thing to change on this page, let's say we decided that the first thing we want to test is the headline. Okay, we're looking at everything seems pretty good, but that headline seems a little bit vague. Okay, so let's go ahead and click Create an A/B Test up here in the top left. This right here just became variation A when we did that. So now we're going to create a new variation. This is variation B. They look exactly the same. Let's go ahead and change the copy of the headline. Let's go ahead and change this a little bit. See if we can get it to fit on one line. All right, so now we have what is essentially a more specific headline. Rather than just take things to the next level or to a higher level, now we're actually telling the prospect what the benefits of this mastermind will be. Conversions and sales. And people can instantly figure out exactly what the focus of this mastermind is going to be. So there's a safe bet that that will probably perform considerably better. If we were to hit update, that would be published as a variation. Now, the way this works is that from this point forward, there will be a 50-50 split, an equal split. So when you're sending traffic to this page, from this moment forward, the first next person is going to go to variation B, the next person is going to go to variation A, and it's going to alternate, filtering left, right, left, right, left, right, A, B, A, B, A, B, so that you have 50% in both pools, and you can see equally what the performance level of each respective one is. Now, depending on what kind of software you're using, it is possible to run a multivariate split test, where you can come on over here, hit new variation, we've got another one here, and we can change the headline again. You can make it a completely different variation as far as the software is concerned, but again, we want to stick to that rule of conversion, optimization, and split testing, and we can basically have a three-way split test between three different headline variations and see which one performs the best. We could add another one and have a four-way test. Does that kind of make sense? As long as it's only one element per time, you can have as many variations as you want. Obviously, you don't want to have too many variations because then you won't have as substantial an amount of traffic going to each variation, and you won't be able to trust and be confident of the results as much. So it's probably best to stick to 2 or 3. Run as much traffic as you can through those, and of course it'll be split equally. So if you have 3, it'll be 33, 33, and 33% going to each page. The next step here is to sit and wait and just let some traffic come to this page until we have a substantial amount that we can actually be certain of the results. Because if we have 10 people come through here and we notice that this page has a 30% higher opt-in rate than the other page, it doesn't really mean anything. It was a pretty small sample group, 10 people. So we want at least something like 50 people to each variation, something in that neighborhood, before we start making assumptions about the results we see. And that's what we're going to do next. Okay, we're going to sit, wait until we have enough data, and then in the next lesson, we're going to analyze results.
All right, welcome to Module 3. In this module, our expert will teach you about analyzing the split test results. So get ready to take some notes, and let's jump right in.
All right, so in this lesson, we're going to be going over some real-world examples of split test results and how to sort of analyze them and what to do with those results. So let's have a look at this one first. This is the page, the original page that we're looking at, okay? Very basic page, minimalist, headline, logo at the top, and a button. And it doesn't really say anything about what it is. In fact, this would be called a blind headline. Okay, It's blinder than blind, actually. So this was the original, and then it was split tested against a couple of other variants. And let's have a look here. So variation, let's see here. Let's make sure I got that right. This is the original. Variation A. They're out of order in that line there. Okay, that's the original. That makes more sense. So this is the original, and it has a little bit of information about the product. Variation B presumably was the blind one. Yep. And variation C was sort of similar to variation A, but the main headline was a little bit well, smaller, but with more text in it. So start making money online with 200 plus free video lessons. Start making money online with our Internet Marketing Academy. So this one has a little bit more detail in it. Let's have a look at what actually was the winner. So variation A, as many of us probably could have guessed, did in fact do a little bit better. It had the highest rate. It was 44.7% conversions. So out of 47 visitors to that variation, 21 of them converted, and that's a pretty solid conversion rate. And there's not much of a difference, though, between that, surprisingly, and the blind one. Whereas this one here, surprisingly, did the worst. 30%, 11.5% less. Now, even though we have what most would agree is a reasonable amount of traffic per variation to come to some conclusions, this is pretty low. We would really want to follow that and see if variation C, which is very similar to variation A, is in fact that much worse and does in fact perform that much worse. One might say that this one performs better because it gets the tangible or the specifics out in the main headline, 200 plus free video lessons, while this one, variation B, performs well because it's the opposite extreme, and blind headlines do in fact sort of galvanize people sometimes. Depending on who you're targeting. If you're targeting people in the MMO niche, the make money online niche, for example, and they can't make any money online, and they see a blind headline that literally just says start making money online right now, maybe that's the factor that made this one almost as successful as the counterpart with the more detailed headline. You know, so the only way to know for sure would be to send more traffic to it. However, if you're running a live operation, you're not just split testing for fun. Remember, you're actually running a business with dollars and cents. It's hard to do that. It's hard to keep throwing money into something that after this much traffic seems to have a lower conversion rate. So rather than just keep it going equally, some might say it's better to just slowly dial it down so that you can have a little bit of traffic going there, which will be useful for checking back up on that split test and seeing if the results changed, let's say a month from now. But you're not wasting too much money by losing that if, in fact, it is objectively true that it performs less. And the way that you do that is just adjusting the traffic split. Now, again, depending on what software you're utilizing, this may or may not be an option, or it might look a little bit different. But on Instapage, it's called traffic split, and you can manually set the traffic split to whatever you want. Absolutely whatever you want. So if we want 15% going to variation C because it's not doing great, but we want to continue accumulating some more traffic and evidence over the course of the coming months and then check again, we can do that. But because these ones are making us the highest number of leads or the highest amount of money right now, we want most of our traffic going there at the moment. Does that kind of make sense? Now let's have another look at a similar real-world example here. And let's see, we'll load up the variations. Okay, so as you can see, there's a pretty significant difference between these. There's no neck and neck like on the previous example. 79.4% is an insane conversion rate for a lead page. Let's have a look at what the difference was. There's this, and this. You'll notice the headline is the same. The size of the box might change a little bit, the text is a little bit wider in that one, but the headline's the same in all of these. The subheadline is exactly the same. And the button is exactly the same. Now this is what's called a bridge page. Okay, so this is a lead page where you capture a lead, but what you're really pitching is a video, And in this case, if I recall, the visitor was then just sent to a sales video for an affiliate offer. Okay? But variation A didn't perform terrible by any means. 38% is still a respectable conversion rate, but it's the lowest of these. And it's a little bit odd because this is kind of a cool looking image. But I think a meteor striking the earth seemed to resonate. I mean, this is a great looking image, but maybe it resonated a little bit more directly being in the center of the screen and having a lot of focus on it, a lot of contrast there in the colors. And it resonated a lot, or I should say, it worked well with the red words earth-shattering. Earth-shattering video changes everything. You know? Now, that was the whole point of all three images. There's a picture of Earth shattering. This one, it's debatable whether Earth is actually shattering. It looks like some type of a planet is colliding into Earth. Shout out to all those, what are they called, Nibiru people out there. But for some reason, this one was astronomically more popular. And here's the deal. When you're analyzing split test results, you're not always going to have an answer. You're not always going to have a why. You know, you're not always going to be able to understand why this one. And honestly, many of the people who come to the page won't be able to tell you why. You know, there's just psychological phenomena sometimes that are very difficult to nail down and enunciate. Your job, however, unless you're a research scientist or something, isn't necessarily to worry and stress out about the why. What you're interested in is the what. And the what in this case is that you're going to get 80%. 8 out of 10 of the people who you send to this variation right here are going to opt in. So let's definitely use that variation more. Does that kind of make sense? So we would want to take, we were talking about dialing it down and dialing it up. We would probably call this one good. It's a lot of traffic, huge difference in conversion, same traffic source for all these pages. One traffic source to one landing page with 3 variations. I mean, you might as well just do this, or even just 100% to variation B. You could turn these ones off. That's a clear winner. So again, sometimes it's going to be a little bit mysterious. Don't stress out too much about the why, although the why can be useful for future endeavors. So if you can enunciate it and can nail it down, then by all means do so. But don't stress out about it too much because you don't really need to know the why. You just want to know which one's performing best and put all of your marketing efforts into that one from that point forward.
Hello and welcome to this course on split testing. In this course, we're going to cover how to boost the performance of your pages and offers using split testing. This course is divided into 3 modules. Module 1 covers common elements that can be tested. Module 2 covers creating test variations. And Module 3 covers analyzing the results. By the time this course is over, you'll know how to effectively optimize your pages and get higher conversions for your business. So, without further ado, let's dive into the first module.